UFC 327 Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg is taking place this Saturday on April 11th for the light heavyweight belt. And in today's video, I'll be doing small predictions for the prelims and a small breakdown going into the main card. And at the end of the video, I'll be doing a cycle parlay calling certain fights on how they're going to end. So make sure you guys tune in. But before we get started, I just wanted to go and show the fight card as a whole. And honestly, this is a really good card start to finish. Like the fact that Aaron Pico versus Patricio Pitbull is on the main event of the prelims, and having Gamrot versus Esteban Ribovic is another banger. I think we're in for a good night of fights this Saturday. And if I was to rate this card as a whole, I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10, maybe a 8.5 at most, because from the looks of it, the main card, there's going to be a lot of knockouts. But let's get right into it. Starting off the prelims, we have Charles Radtke versus Francisco Prado. Charles is coming off an impressive submission win against Daniel Frunza, and that fight wasn't easy. It was honestly a competitive matchup, especially early in the fight, but by round 3, both of the guys were getting tired, and Radtke saw an opening and choked them out. He pretty much just waited for Daniel Frunza to make a mistake, and he capitalized off it. But Charles is 4-2 in the UFC, with 2 of those losses being against top opponents in the welterweight division, and he lost to Mike Mallet, who's going up against Gilbert Burns for the rankings, and he also lost to Carlos Prates, which is an understandable loss just because Carlos Prates is in the top of the division and he's making it look easy against his opponents. As with Francisco Prado, he's currently on a 3-fight losing streak. I believe in a fight like this, Francisco Prado best chance of winning is to keep this fight standing, just because Charles Radtke is a really good wrestler and Radtke could possibly pull out a submission win if that was to happen. But Prado's younger and explosive. I think if he pressures this fight really early, he could catch Radtke. Prado should definitely keep his distance and avoid any sorts of grappling with Charles Radtke. But with all that being said, I'll make it quick. Give me Charles Radtke to defeat Francisco Prado by decision. Next up, we have Kelvin Gastelum versus Vicente Luque. Not gonna lie, this fight is a really good matchup just because both of these guys are on their way out. And there's one thing about Kelvin, he could never make weight, but he still manages to defeat a lot of his opponents. But if we look at his resume, Kelvin has only lost against the top fighters like Joe Pyfer, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, and of course Israel Adesanya. But with Vicente Luque, he is currently on a 2-fight losing streak, and his last fight against Joel Alvarez, he got beat up pretty bad. Joel dominated from start to finish, but the age and the damage that Luque has took in his last fight has me thinking that Kelvin Gastelum will win by decision. Although he's a little old as well, and he might not always be fit, Kelvin Gastelum brings chaos into all his fights and make it really entertaining. But it's going to be a striking clinic again from Kelvin Gastelum, and I believe we're going to see him win by decision. Next up, we have the main events for the early prelims. Chris Padilla versus Markel Medeiros. Chris is currently on a 4-fight winning streak, with his last fight winning by knockout against Ismael Bonfim, and 3 of those fights were by knockout or doctor stoppage or even a submission. So we know that Chris Padilla could finish a fight. And as in with Medeiros, 3 of his UFC fights were all by decision, with one of them being a split decision against Austin Hubbard. I believe somebody in this fight will be getting knocked out just because Medeiros is the type of fighter to apply a lot of pressure and throw a lot of strikes. Medeiros really has good leg kicks, knees, and creative shots. And I think when you have a guy like Chris Padilla, who's a scrappy fighter, he definitely has finishing instinct. So if he is able to hurt Medeiros early and he sees that he's hurt, he's gonna go for the finish. And Chris Padilla isn't the cleanest striker, but when he throws with bad intentions. Chris Padilla also has been asking the UFC for him to get a fight bonus, and during a post-fight interview, he breaks down because he feels like he's deserved multiple bonuses throughout his fights. And I mean, if you go look at it, every fight has been a finish. So a part of me does believe that Chris Padilla will be winning by knockout or by decision this Saturday to defeat Markel Medeiros. And now to start off the prelims, we have Tatiana Suarez versus Lupi Godinez. Tatiana's coming off a win against Amanda Lemos, and in that fight, Tatiana just really wrestled Lemos. She didn't let Lemos land any big strikes on her, and to be honest, Tatiana is just a big fighter compared to the other females in the division, especially Lupi Godinez. And my thing is, Lupi Godinez has it all to be a fighter. She has the striking and the grappling, but there's one thing that she lacks, and that's height, just because she's such a small fighter compared to Tatiana Suarez. I believe that Lupi Godinez is going to have to make this fight ugly in order for her to have a chance in this fight. And like I said, Tatiana is just a big fighter. I truly believe that she will be controlling the striking distance distance. And not only that, she will use her height and her reach to defeat Lupi. So give me Tatiana Suarez to defeat Lupi Godinez by decision or submission. Next up, we have an absolute banger. One of my favorite fighters, I ain't gonna lie. Esteban Rivovic will be going up against Mateus Gamrot. Not gonna lie, this is a big fight for Esteban because a win could get him into the top 15 ranking. So there's a lot on the line for Esteban Rivovic. I believe that Esteban will have to apply pressure once the fight starts, and he cannot be on his back foot because that's where Gamrot will get advantage. So as long as Esteban just throws a lot of strike and is able to be composed and not waste so much energy with those strikes, I believe that he will beat Gamrot. I know it's easier said than done, but I truly do think Esteban has the potential to be a top 5 lightweights in a division, and I believe Gamrot is just in his way. I think he's due for a big win. I can definitely see Esteban Rivovic stopping a lot of these takedowns from Gamrot, and I believe that Esteban will knock him out. Maybe round 2, round 1. This could age really badly, but I know that Gamrot has a lot of experience. He's fought against Armin Saryukin, Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner. None of those fights were easy for him, and although he had success in some of those fights, I believe that this fight will be similar to that Dan Hooker fight, where it's going to be scrappy, a lot of punches being thrown, nothing but chaos, and I think that Esteban thrives in those type of fights. So for that reason, give me Esteban Rivovic to knock out Gamrot or to win by decision. Next up, we have Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown. Another amazing fight. And look, I don't usually like betting on Kevin Holland just because he's not someone that cares to win. He's more of a fighter who just wants to put entertaining fights for the fans, which I respect. So bet at your own risk when you're betting on Kevin Holland. Just a heads up, guys. But let's get right into it. Randy Brown is coming off a brutal knockout loss against Gabriel Bonfim a while back, so he took some time off, which is good. But to be honest, this fight is 50-50 for me. But I could definitely see Kevin Holland drop Randy Brown in round 2 and could possibly catch him in a submission. It sounds crazy, but this fight would be exactly just how Randy Brown was against JDM. Since we've seen Randy get knocked out pretty bad last time, I believe that Kevin Holland is going to clip him and he's going to drop him. So give me Kevin Holland by submission. And now for the main event of the prelims, we have the return of Aaron Pico, and he will be going up against Patricio Pitbull. This is one hell of a matchup that should have been happening in the other organization, but it's finally happening in the UFC. I think in a fight like this for Aaron Pico, he definitely needs to be locked in and not do the same mistake he did last time. I believe in his last fight against Lerone Murphy, he really tried to do a statement win and knock out Murphy to get that title shot, but it bit him in the ass and it went the other way, and he got knocked out cold. One of the dirtiest spinning back elbows that I've seen in a long time. I think Pico should definitely be wrestling in this fight just because he has elite wrestling. Do not keep this fight standing. I think that Patricio Pitbull will be able to outstrike him, and knowing that he came off a nasty knockout loss, the last thing Aaron Pico should be doing is trying to strike against Pitbull. Aaron Pico is just the younger, the stronger, the faster fighter in this fight, and for that, give me Aaron Pico to win by decision. And now, finally, for the main card opener, we have Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr. Nate is coming off a 2-fight losing streak, and in both of those fights, he got knocked out in the 3rd round, so he's been taking a lot of damage recently. Although Cub Swanson is the older fighter, he still looked impressive in his last fight, winning by a knockout, and this being his retirement fight, I think that the UFC did Cub Swanson a favor, giving him a guy who's been taking a lot of damage lately, losing both fights by knockout. The thing is, we all know what Nate Landwehr is going to do. He thrives in brawls, he loves to throw down. Nate throws big shots, and Swanson's going to have to counter him. I think the first round will say a lot, and if Cub Swanson manages to survive that first round, then I could definitely see him dominate the fight and manages to defeat Nate Landwehr by decision. So for that, give me Cub Swanson to have his fairy tale ending, winning by decision or a knockout. And now the second fight in that main card, it will be Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. This might be the goofiest fight in the whole card. We possibly might have a chance to see a double knockout. We have Dominic Reyes coming off a loss against Carlos Ulberg back in September, where he got brutally knocked out. He took some time to recover, so I believe that he should be good going into this fight. As for Johnny Walker's last fight, he was a big underdog going up against Ming Yang, and he managed to defeat him. But once it comes to this fight, I think it's whoever lands the first punch flush is gonna win. Both of these guys are very chinny. They've both been knocked out multiple times, back-to-back fights. These guys have taken a lot of damage in their career, and honestly, I don't know who wins this fight. I am leaning towards Dominic Reyes. I just think his striking IQ is just better than Johnny Walker's. And for that, give me Dominic Reyes to win by knockout. Next up, we have Curtis Blades versus Josh Hokett. And I'm gonna make this one quick. This is my lock of the day. Give me Curtis Blades by knockout. Just because as of lately, the UFC's been giving Curtis Blades some up and comers, and all of the lines have been close. I'm not sure why. Just because Josh Hokett has fought a bunch of nobodies leading up to this point. As with Curtis Blades, he's fought Tom Aspinall, Alexander Volkov, Sergey Popovich, Derek Lewis, Rosenstrike, and of course he might have not won all those fights, but he's been in the fight against the top fighters in the heavyweight division, so he has the experience. And I don't think Josh Hokett is ready for this main card and having to go against a guy like Curtis Blades. So give me Curtis Blades to knock out Josh Hokett in the first round. And now for the co-main event of this card, we have Azmat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. And this is Paulo Costa's debut at light heavyweight. Azmat's last 3 fights raw by knockout. Currently 16-0. This guy is no joke. The last time Paulo Costa's got knocked out was against Israel Adesanya back in 2020. So it's been a while. And since he's going up weight, I believe that yes, Paulo Costa will be stronger. But my main concern is if he will have that speed he had against Roman Kopylov. Just because how fast he looked against him really impressed me. And if he could carry this to the light heavyweight division, then he was for sure going to be a problem. But that cardio is terrible from Paulo Costa. I think that's where he really struggles. I do believe Azmat has the power to knock him out, but it's something about Costa that makes me think that he has a really good chance of defeating Azmat and taking his O. Just because Paulo Costa is really good on his feet, good head kicks, spinning kicks, and I could definitely see Paulo Costa catching him with a head kick. There's a good chance that he does that, just because Azmat is a small light heavyweight. But I'm gonna have to go with Azmat on this one, so give me Azmat by knockout or decision. I think he gets it done and goes to 17-0. And now finally we have the main event of the evening, Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg. This is another fight on this card that is 50-50. I can see it go both ways. I think that Jiri Prochazka gets hit too much, but he manages to eat a lot of punches. The only punches he didn't eat were from Alex Pereira, but that's Alex Pereira. This is the best light heavyweight. But now he's going against Carlos Ulberg, who's a sniper. I feel like Carlos Ulberg makes people pay when they miss. He's done it plenty of times. And if we look at Jiri's last fight against Roundtree, he didn't look good in those first 2 rounds. And he even acknowledged it. He was on stream with Aiden Ross and he talked about that whole fight and how he felt about those first 2 rounds. But then again, this is a 5-round fight. Carlos Ulberg's never fought a 5-round fight. And the thing is, Jiri Prochazka, 5 rounds are nothing to him. He submitted Glover in the last 2 minutes of the last round. Jiri has the experience. He's been a champion. But my main question is, how does Carlos Ulberg react after getting hit? I don't recall a single fight where Carlos Ulberg really got hit besides his loss against Kennedy, but that was a while back. That was early in his career. But now he's gonna have to face a guy like Jiri Prochazka. This isn't gonna be an easy fight for Carlos Ulberg at all. I could definitely see this fight going into the late rounds, like maybe round 4, where Jiri gets it done. I think Carlos Ulberg will gas out eventually, and that's when Jiri's gonna take over and possibly win by TKO. And there's one main thing that's leaning me towards Jiri, is that he's having a kid soon. And it sounds crazy, but a lot of the times when fighters have kids, they go on a crazy run, just like Charles Oliveira. There's multiple fighters that win in situations like that, and I just don't see Jiri losing. So for that, give me Jiri Prochazka and you light heavyweight champ by TKO or decision. And that is my final pick. And now, since you made it to the end, I will be telling you guys my cycle parlay for UFC 327, and that's starting off with Kelvin Gastelum to defeat Vicente Luque by decision, and the second prop will be Kevin Holland to defeat Randy Brown by submission, and to end the parlay I'll be putting Curtis Blades to win by knockout. So that concludes this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you guys in the next one.